Long ago, there lived a wise man named Ethan in a small village nestled beside a mountain. Ethan was renowned for his profound silence and deep wisdom. The villagers often sought his advice whenever life's problems seemed too tangled to solve, for he had the rare ability to find clarity in the simplest of words. One day, a young and ambitious man named Michael came to Ethan. Restless and eager, said, "Master Ethan, every time I try to convince people with my arguments or gain their respect, they turn away from me. Teach me the secret of your wisdom. How can I be silent like you and still command the admiration of others?" Ethan smiled gently and motioned for Michael to sit beside him. Then, with a calm voice, he said, "My son, wisdom is not about speaking much, but about knowing when to speak. Let me tell you a story about a king and a silent stranger, a story that may change the way you see life." Michael leaned in eagerly, and Ethan began his tale. Once upon a time, in a grand kingdom, there lived a young and proud king named Alexander. Alexander was intelligent and well-read, but his arrogance often overshadowed his virtues. Every week, he held public debates in the royal court, challenging scholars and wise men to prove his superior intellect. Few dared to challenge him, not because they agreed with him, but because they feared his wrath. One day, a mysterious man arrived in the kingdom. He was dressed in simple clothes with a black scarf covering most of his face. He spoke to no one, yet he attended every one of the king's debates, standing silently in the back of the room. The king noticed him and grew irritated over time. How could someone attend every debate without showing admiration or dissent? During one debate, the king finally called out to him, "You there, the silent man. What do you think of my words? Answer me before everyone or leave my kingdom." The stranger raised his head slightly, his piercing eyes meeting the king's, but he said nothing. The king's voice grew louder. "Do you think your silence makes you wiser than me?" The stranger stepped forward slowly and said, "Your Majesty, sometimes silence speaks louder than words. If you wish to learn the secret of wisdom in silence, accompany me on a journey to the mountains." The king, though annoyed by the stranger's boldness, accepted the challenge. Early the next morning, the king and the stranger set off, accompanied by the royal guards. The path was treacherous, filled with jagged rocks and steep cliffs. Halfway up the mountain, the stranger stopped and turned to the guards, saying, "This part of the journey is for the king alone. Stay here." The guards hesitated, but the king, unwilling to show fear, ordered them to remain behind and continued alone with the stranger. As they climbed, they encountered a venomous snake, coiled around a large rock in their path. The king instinctively drew his sword to kill it, but the stranger gently placed a hand on his arm to stop him. "Why are you stopping me? That snake is a threat," the king demanded. The stranger remained silent and gestured for the king to sit. Confused but intrigued, the king complied. Moments later, a pack of hungry wolves emerged from behind the rocks. They pounced on the snake, devouring it and clearing the path. The stranger stood and said, "Had you acted hastily, Your Majesty, we would have faced the wolves' wrath. Patience and silence saved us." The king was taken aback by the stranger's wisdom, but still didn't fully understand his lesson. They reached the top of the mountain, where the air was fresh and the view was beautiful. The stranger turned to the king and said, "Your Majesty, I will ask you one question. If you answer it correctly, I will admit that you are wiser than I." The king, confident in his mind, said, "Ask your question." The stranger pointed to the valley below and asked, "If a rock fell from this mountain and no one heard it, would it make a sound? The king thought for a moment and replied, "Of course it would make a sound, whether anyone heard it or not." The stranger laughed quietly and said, "And what kind of wisdom does it have if no one recognizes it or sees it?" The king fell silent, realizing the question was not about the boulder, but about the essence of wisdom itself. He returned to his palace a changed man. From that day forward, he spoke less and listened more, understanding that true strength lay not in showing off one's knowledge, but in knowing when to stay silent. Ethan finished the story and turned to Michael. "Wisdom, my son, is not about filling the air with words, but about speaking only when your words can create change." Michael smiled, a newfound respect in his eyes. "I understand now, Master Ethan. I will learn to make my silence golden and my words silver."